Hello, people. I'm going to have a little bit of fun once a week, and we're going to discuss mob movies. And today's going to be one of these. And the reason I'm doing it is because 35 years ago, uh, in a hole in Indiana in a farm, they found Tony Spilotro buried along with his brother, Michael Spilotro. Tony Spilotro was 48 at the time, and his brother was 41. They started running into a lot of issues in court. They ran wild in Las Vegas. There were all sorts of charges coming down on them. So they were taken out basically because a lot of people were getting nervous. And it's a shame that's what happened, but as people know in the mafia, that's usually the way it ends. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the movie and the players in it and the actual true story. Like kind of combine them together. And the movie which was made in 1995, which was just 9 years after they found Tony Spilotro and his brother in that hole on that farm in Indiana. They weren't really supposed to find them. It just so happened that a farmer came along a week after they were killed and found the bodies, and they were identified by their teeth, and they were beaten to death in the basement of another home, and then they were taken there. See, in the movie, it shows them being beaten by the hole and thrown in. That's not how it happened. What actually happened is they got beaten to death in a basement, and then they got taken there and dumped in the hole. They already had the hole dug. They figured it was going to be easy to do and easy. But by some luck, this huge farm, which was leased by this farmer, he found it a hole. It was obvious that it was a hole there, and they started digging, and they hit the first body on top, which was Tony, and then about a couple feet underneath him was his brother, and that meant one thing: they beat the brother to death and made Tony watch, and that's cool. And they wanted to get the brother out of the way because they figured that the brother would want revenge. So kill two birds with one stone. That's exactly what they did. So let's get into this a little bit. So Tony was killed 35 years ago. In the movie Casino, it starred Robert De Niro, Sharon Stone, Joe Pesci, James Woods, Don Rickles, and Frank Vincent, the great Vincent, who's no longer with us. And as we know, Frank Vincent played Billy Bats in Goodfellas, and he played a great role with The Sopranos. Phil Leotardo, I believe it was, and just a great actor, and just the perfect gangster in a movie. Okay, so let's get back to the part of what happened. So, and we're just going to discuss why they were killed. I'm not going to go over the whole movie because we already know it's a great movie, and I'm going to give you the basic knowledge on the movie and who was in it. And from there, we'll go. Like I said, Casino was made in 1995, just 9 years after Tony Spilatro's 48 at the time, and Michael Spilatro, 41, were put in the hole on that farm in Indiana. What happened is they got up. They told their wives that they were going to a meeting. They didn't say where. They just typical mafia stuff. They figured they were safe because they were together. They had no idea what was awaiting them in that basement. And so, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the article that happened. It was right about maybe 10 days after they were originally killed. It was lucky the bodies were found, to be honest with you. Very, very lucky. Because the murder to this day is unsolved. They kind of have an idea who may have done it, but it is unsolved. But let's read up on it a little bit. And I'm going to add this to the stream. And this is the Chicago Tribune. And I'm just going to start. Let me close this up. Okay. So basically, Spilatro found beaten to death. And this is an article by Ronald Kuzel and Edward Bauman. And this was June 25th, 1986. An autopsy completed Tuesday determined that mob figure Anthony Spilatro, 48, and his brother, 41, whose bodies were found buried under 5 feet of wet earth Sunday in a muddy northwest Indiana cornfield, had been savagely beaten. Newton County Coroner David Dennis said the cause of death for both Spalatros was multiple head and neck injuries as a result of forced blunt trauma. So, beaten to death, everything above the neck. Just think about that. I mean, the worst part of the beating was the neck and above. So it had to be horrible. The coroner estimated that the brothers had been dead since June 14th. So if they found the bodies about maybe 10 days later, they found the bodies. Okay, and would not have been easy they would not have been easy to trap or kill. They said, however, that they could have developed a false sense of security because the brother was with him when he met with whoever was responsible for carrying out the slayings. There were also developments in the case Tuesday. Several associates of Anthony Spalatro in Las Vegas have dropped from sight, and police said apparently had gone into hiding and feared for their own safety. So his crew that started this hole in the wall gang, that's basically what they called themselves. They all went into hiding. They were all under fear of dying, and some more of them did die. So they were wiping out this whole crew because they were afraid that they were all going to sing or bring people down around them. Investigators in Las Vegas, where Anthony was identified as the mob's official representative, said there are indications he might have been marked for death as long as 3 months ago. An estimated $1.5 million in loans made by mob loan sharks in Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and San Diego were called in by Chicago mob bosses during the last 3 months. So here you got the money's out there. The bosses know they're going to whack these guys, so they're going to collect the money. They want to know that they're going to be able to collect this money. They don't want them to be killed first, and then they have to look for money. So they pretty much got an idea where the money was at, and they started collecting it. And, you figured that Tony would figure something was up with his brother, but they didn't. They didn't sense it. They had they had so much power that, well, they thought they had all this power that they were ready to just think they were going to a regular meeting, not having no idea that was going to be it. They said Spalatro, who controlled juice money in Las Vegas and California, issued a recall on orders from Chicago. The story let out in the street that Chicago mob bosses needed the money to pay legal fees for convicted mob leaders Joseph Apuna, AIUPPA, APA, and John Cerrone, as well as others facing trial. Actually, sources said Tuesday the mobs appeared to be clearing the books, calling the money because someone high in the underworld authority knew that Spalatro was going to be killed. Among Spalatro's associates reportedly concerned for his own safety is Herbert Blitzstein, 52, a former Chicagoan who was indicted in Las Vegas with Spalatro on federal racketeering and conspiracy charges. The bodies of the Spalatro brothers, one on top of the other, clad only in underwear, were discovered Sunday in a 5-foot deep grave in the cornfield, 12,000-acre Willow Slough Preserve, just 2 miles east of the Indiana-Illinois state line. The freshly turned earth was noticed by the farmer who thought the remains of a dead deer out of season had been buried there by a poacher. Indiana State Police, who was in charge of the investigation, said there is an additional evidence. The leads we are checking out now that they are found near the scene of the grave. He added that it appears that the two were killed or died in Newton County. There was no evidence that either had been bound by hand or foot, which means if they weren't bound, they were dead. They didn't have to worry about bounding them. That's more proof that they were beaten in the basement and they were beaten to death. It doesn't appear that an instrument was used because of the lack of fractures. So that means they punched them to death. So that means that they held them, and from the neck up, they just beat the shit out of them. And broke their skulls with their fist and just beat them up, broke the jaws and the eye sockets. It was a vicious, vicious beating. In the movies, it shows them baseball bats behind the legs and all that. That's not what happened. The victims were identified by dental charts supplied by the doctor of the brother of Patrick's brother. And the coroner said it was too early to determine whether the victims had been drugged or consumed alcohol. Well, they didn't. Eventually, that would come out. It is very likely the persons responsible for that left the scene of the crime in anticipation of bodies would never be found. So they never thought these bodies were going to be found. By some freakish luck, the bodies were found. The farmer just went into that spot of this huge farm and found it and found this hole. So if this was a week later, that hole's not going to be discovered. So that was supposed to be their final resting place. But luckily for the families, they could bury them. He described the killer's effort to bury the crime forever as a botched attempt. The disposal was botched in the grave that was dug inside a newly planted cornfield. The shoots of corns are only 4 inches high and field they were only 4 inches high. Imagine that. That's not a very high cornfield. In the movies, they have the cornfields really high and they're hiding behind the corn. It's kind of funny when you listen to this and you realize it's nothing like the movie presented it. And so the shoots of corns were only 4 inches high and field to hide the site, which is on the edge of the field near the line of trees. Haggerty, who went to Newton County after the bodies were found, said the investigators were trying to trace movements of a stolen car on Chicago's South Side on the day the brothers disappeared and found the car burning on County Road 100 North near the gravesite on June 16th. As you could tell, this was very sloppily done. Why would you take the car where you just buried bodies and bring attention to that area and burn the car? You figured you wait till you got over the line and back into Illinois before you did that. But nope, right down the street. One mistake after another when they killed these guys. Haggerty said the FBI believes the car was used to carry the bodies to the site. The mob often burns cars used in killings to prevent investigators from uncovering microscopic but incriminating fibers, hairs, and other evidence. The two Spilotro brothers left Oak Park driving in a 1986 Lincoln owned by Michael's, that's the younger brother's, wife, Ann. The car was found abandoned 2 nights later in a Schiller Park motel near O'Hare Airport. The Spilotros disappeared 9 days before Anthony was to stand trial a second time in Nevada on charges that he ran the Hole in the Wall gang, a Las Vegas burglary ring. And not only were they a burglary ring, these guys were stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, they knew who to rob, where to go to rob, and they were just making a ton of money off of it. Some residents in Newton County in northwestern Indiana, meanwhile, were beginning to wonder why their area is a dumping ground for corpses. Well, it's obvious. They want to go over the borderline from Illinois, and nice soft dirt, and it's easier to dig when property is already turned over for farming. Authorities said the discovery of the Spilotro brothers brings to 8 the number of bodies found in the county since 1980. So that means with over a 10-year period, maybe. No, I'm sorry, a 5-year period that they found 10 bodies. So that was definitely a dumping ground for the mob. It just seems like we were dumping places for bodies up north, said Jackie Ellis, 44, a county welfare office worker. It seems like it's happening more. We're not very heavily populated, so it's easy to get rid of a body. Yep, that's pretty much it, and that's why they did it. And because they wanted to get rid of the bodies, and they didn't want to get rid of them in Illinois. And it's a very interesting story. And let's, I'm going to show you a couple pictures here so we could talk about this a little bit, get back into the movie part. Okay, so let me get this out of here. Okay, so here you got, this is Tony Spilotro when he was going to court. Uh, and this is a couple weeks before his death, and this is in Chicago. And this is the movie Casino. And as you know, I already named the cast of the movie. It was a pretty phenomenal cast. Sharon Stone's, Robert De Niro, and um, Joe stole the movie as Tony Spilotro. He literally stole the movie. I think that him and James Woods as the boyfriend pimp of Sharon Stone did a great. I thought they stole the movie, but when you think about James Woods and another thing is people say, okay, Joe Pesci's a small guy. He's only 5'4", 5'5", but Tony Spilotro was only 5'5". So with standing next to each other, they were two very short Italian guys, and so Joe Pesci actually legitimately fell right into that part because he looked so much like him. And okay, and this is Frank Vincent and the great Frank Vincent and Joe Pesci in the movie. As people know, we were just talking about Joe Pesci, how he played. Oh, he's always played the perfect psychotic killer. When he played Tommy DeSimone, uh, Goodfellas, same thing. He played this psychotic killer. Now, what I'd like you guys to do is after you see this, tell me what movie do you think Joe Pesci was best in? Was he best in Goodfellas or was he better in Casino? If you take those two movies, those two great parts that Joe Pesci played, which one do you think he was better in? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably like on Fridays or something when I'm not doing a live, I'm going to go and talk about these movies. We like entertainment here. That's why we watch these shows. And this is why you listen to me or you listen to one of the other people. It's because we love these shows. So we love great movies. We love great mafia movies. And so I just figured the main reason that I started off with Casino was because of Tony Spilotro, 35 since he's been dead. But what I didn't realize that the movie Casino was made so close to, well, just 9 years after he actually died. But isn't it amazing how when you go on trial, a lot of times the mafia kills you because they're so worried about what you're going to say or who you're going to bring down. So even a guy as powerful as Tony Spilotro who was a madman killer, and they say he killed 9 people. That I believe that's the total they had on him. 9 bodies to him. But when it comes to people getting afraid to go into jail, like Tony Accardo or who's ever in Chicago in that area at that time, they're going to do whatever they got to do. And that means Kansas City. That whole northwest section of the mob was affected by Tony Spilotro court case because they basically sent Tony to take over Las Vegas, and he was the muscle in Las Vegas along with his brother. But that's all I want to say right now. I hope you enjoyed that little piece of information, and I enjoyed doing it. And I'm enjoying probably next week I'm going to do Goodfellas. So that's what I think. Leave in the comment. Tell me what you think, people. And remember one thing, please, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And if you've already subscribed, hit the bell so you know with notification when I am coming on live. And also hit the like, please. And that's it, people. A nice 20-minute video to talk to you about Tony Spilotro and what happened with his death, his brother's death, and a little bit about the movie. Okay, everybody, take care. Thank you.